Hello and good morning, everyone. I am Mano Veerabatran, Under Secretary, International Division, Ministry of Communications and Multimedia. I also sit in as the Vice Chair of IFAP for the Information for All program. So as the Vice Chair of IFAP, Malaysia welcomes all of you to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today. Our special thanks to the panelists for taking their time out of their busy schedule to join us this very morning. We are very honored to have all of you on board. And so, before we begin with our first session, please allow me to briefly introduce our panelists for today's endeavor. From the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development, we have with us today Mr. Chua Chun Hua, Under Secretary of the Strategic Planning and Policy Division. From the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC, we have its CEO, Ms. Surina Shukri. From the Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development, we are graced by Datin Dr. Shahira Hamidun, Under Secretary of the Policy and International Relations Division. From the Center for Instructor and Advanced Training Skill, we are honored to have technologist Dr. Nurul Amin Badrul, Head of Research and Innovation. From the Malaysian Research Institute of Aging, University Putra Malaysia, UPM, we are in the company of its Deputy Director, Associate Professor Dr. Rahima Ibrahim. From the Khazanah Research Institute, KRI, we welcome Dr. Rachel Gong, Senior Research Associate. From CIMB, we are delighted to have Dr. A. Imran Nordin, Senior UX Design Researcher. From University Malaysia Pahang, we welcome Associate Professor, Engineer, Dr. Nurul Hazlina Nurdin, Senior Lecturer from the Faculty of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. And from Human Resource Development Fund, HRDF, we have Mr. Roni Ambrose Gobili, Chief Programs Officer. For the audiences, while participating in this webinar, please keep in mind that you are on mute, but can ask questions at any time by typing it in the chat area in your control panel. For your information, this webinar will be recorded. Now let me proceed to our second panelist. Our second panelist is Associate Professor Engineer Dr. Nurul Hazlina Nurdin from the College of Engineering in University Malaysia Pahang. She holds a PhD from University of Edinburgh, UK, and a master's degree from University of Science Malaysia. She has chaired several programs, including digital literacy programs, Pahang Facts Hunting, Young Innovation Challenge, Pahang Hackathon, and Innovate Malaysia Design Conference. She has been recognized by MDEC under the My Digital Maker initiative as one of the key players and game changers in shaping the education towards the 21st century. I now welcome Associate Professor Engineer Dr. Nurul Hazlina to deliver her presentation on embracing digital literacy and inspiration for the young millennial. Please, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mano, for the very kind words and introduction. Let me share my slides, yeah?
Sure.
Okay, first and foremost, I would like to thank the organizer, Ministry of Multimedia and Communication, for inviting me as one of the speakers in this UNESCO 2020 webinars. I feel very honored and glad to listen to the interesting talks by fellow speakers today. I'm Nurul Hazlina Nordin from University Malaysia Pahang. So in this session, I'll be sharing some of our experience in uplifting the community through digital literacy, in particular relating to STEM education, involving the young millennial from the east coast of Malaysia. Well, first, I'll be elaborating on digital transformation from the perspective of engineering education and how being digitally literate can boost one's learning experience. Then followed by the importance of young millennial to be equipped with the innovator's mindset. Next, I'll share some of our small experience, the UMP STEM Lab, in engaging with the community with STEM outreach programs and activities. And finally, some takeaway notes to the young millennial out there. So basically, this all begins with digital transformation. So digital transformation generally begins with the digitization in education, involving the way how knowledge is preserved and taught. Today, more than ever, the learning materials are converted into digital platform, and large amount of data and information are available through digital learning. Using variety of technical tools, greater number of information can be displayed. and numerous creative animated learning materials covering theoretical knowledge such as engineering concepts, science concepts are presented and can be presented in more interesting and interactive way. Now, this leads to digitalization process in our education system. In a way, it has impacted the way teaching and learning is conducted. The internet has its influence too, for me positively, whereby conventional classroom teaching and learning can now be shifted to online classes. The implementation of virtual reality, augmented reality in our education system have as well offered unparalleled immersive learning experience. As you can see, recently, our Malaysian education system has been pushed to shift to online learning in response towards the recent COVID-19 pandemic. There are, however, obvious challenges, especially in the context of providing necessary technologies to support this digital transformation in education. And finally, digitalization in education leads to creation. Now, discoveries of new knowledge, invention, and creation. The rise of digital transformation in education across the world means that traditional teaching is evolving and technologies are taking over classroom, as well as this has heavily influenced their learning experience, be it in classroom or out classroom. The digital revolution in the education sphere means students have access to the best resources at a click of a button in any remote location. Now, this is where being digitally literate is important. Now, as more and more learning materials are available at a finger click, the young millennial must acquire the right skill to locate, analyze, and synthesize information. You can find yourself lost in the information, in the sea of information in the internet. How well the young millennial adapt with the new, constantly changing learning environment would as well have an impact to their learning experience. Digital literacy and 21st century plays a crucial role as part of modern day citizenship and modern life in general. Therefore, the young millennial need an agile mindset, willing to try new things, learn from both success and failures, and be supported to do so. Well, young millennials are generally tech savvy. Millennials interact with technology like no other generation before them. Well, I myself only had my first phone, the legendary 3320 Nokia, when I was only 18 years old. But today, kids as young as 6 years old have their own smartphone, Facebook account, blog, and so on. However, in today's rapidly evolving world, where the word of disruptive technology, disruptive innovation has become common in our life, being only a technology user is not enough. Young millennial has to acquire the innovator's mindset. Some of the traits of having innovator's mindset include being empathic, the motivation of creating new ways of doing things from the perspective of users. They need to become good problem finder. This is where curiosity leads to quality, meaningful questions, not just simply asking to get answers. As the saying goes, always ask question one step ahead from what you can Google. Innovators are risk takers. They are well networked, observant, creators, resilient, and reflective. Another way to understand and to look into this is by understanding what the opposite of an innovator. Well, innovator does not imitate, nor does duplicate. Coming to realize the importance of acquiring the innovator's mindset, we as the lecturers team up and started to engage with the community. We promote the importance of STEM education and the UMP STEM lab philosophy, which are see, think, explore, and marvel. We strongly believe that early exposure will ignite interest among the youngsters to take up STEM in their future and cultivate the innovator's mindset. We conducted outreach programs that involve interaction between UMP staff, students, and community. the school children and teachers. UMP students became mentors and role models to the young school children. Not only, let me play the video. Not only were they facilitated these students in learning the concept, but also shared their experience in doing engineering projects. Apart from upskilling classes, the interaction between teachers and lecturers had as well became a platform for discussion and sharing session on best practices in STEM teaching and learning. Now, from engineering point of view, essential skills and knowledge that will equip the young millennials include robotics, embedded system, and coding. This domain has become a regular platform in today's invention. Learning modules were crafted out carefully in order to nurture their interest to be innovators. Throughout the outreach program, preschoolers and early primary school children were introduced to the technology in fun and interactive activities. At this stage, the emphasis is more into defining the technology. For example, answering the what is this, what is that question. Whereby, via hands-on classes, secondary school children experiments and learn the working mechanism and its operating concept. Here, the focus is how stuff work. How can I code this? How can I create that? How can I generate this? And so on. In STEM Lab, we introduced the open source technologies to the school children and teachers, such as shown here. The Arduino STEM robot and also the Raspberry Pi CAN-set. Via this STEM board, for example, students were exposed to Arduino microcontrollers and programming where a number of coding concepts were introduced. During my time, these are only accessible in my undergraduate studies. But nowadays, students can find this in their school syllabus and curriculum. Students also learn about the basic working concept of electronic components and sensors, such as the IR sensor, ultrasonic sensors. With the right mentoring and facilitation, these students then further develop their projects into application, such as obstacle avoidance robots and also line following robots. Now, throughout the years, we have collaborated with various industries and agencies and managed to engage with more than 4,000 school children. Since 2016, various classes and programs were organized, which include programming classes, 3D printing and modeling, web design, and robotics. With open source platform, resources from the internet, and accessibility to the digital content, students, regardless of geographical factors, like in the East Coast, are able to access the technology and develop the required skill, and hopefully one day be inspired to become innovators, inshallah. In conclusion, digital literacy is essential, especially today more than ever. Now, COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we live today, and definitely will reshape our education system. To the young millennial, be analytical, especially in analyzing information obtained from various digital platforms. And remember to be safe while surfing online. Be adaptable, whether in various learning environments or whether with various learning teammates and so on. And finally, be agile. Learn new things every day. On the last note, Alhamdulillah, UMP STEM Lab is at where we are today because of the strong support that we get from UMP, industry partners locally and internationally, agencies from governments and non-government organizations, UMP staff, students, and most of all the communities, specifically the school teachers and school children, the young millennial. Involvement and commitment from each party is crucial in assuring the success of this community engagement and outreach programs. Again, I would like to thank the organizer, Ministry of Multimedia and Communication, and UNESCO for this webinar. Till we meet again, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hazlina. I think you made a very pertinent point. It's just not about using technology, but how to be innovative by using the technology itself. And the accessibility that the current generation has as compared to what we had in our times. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities for them. So we reserve the questions until we finish with the other presenter. Now I'd like to introduce Yeah. All right. So now I have two questions from the audience. I'll start with the first question because we are running short of time. So we'll quickly try and wrap this up. Okay. First question: how do we exactly curb gaming addiction among the youngsters and cultivate innovation skills? About Dr. Hazlina, if you would like to add to that, because you are dealing with students from schools, you're making innovators out of them. Yeah.
Well, obviously you can addict it to good habit and you can also addict it to bad habit. I think most importantly is the starting point, the introduction point. I mean, like today the challenge, as I mentioned before, because at the early age, at 2 years old, 3 years old, these young kids had been given access to this technology. And one thing that we always emphasize in our preschool programs is that to take control. I mean, for those kids with parents who are aware with this kind of addictions and so on, the discipline comes from the parents. But those in the rural areas, sometimes phones is a medium for the children to maybe get away from their trouble or maybe divert from from the difficulties that they are facing into. So these kinds of community in which I find it quite challenging. Now, how can we nurture the interest to be innovators? I mean, like naturally humans are curious. So the curiosity would lead to some innovation. As Dr. Imran mentioned just now, salted egg nasi goreng, which is quite nice. And yeah,
You should try.
those kind of thing comes in when people reach at one point that they want they feel curious of exploring something new, and that innovation need to be nurtured. Now, some kids are lucky. This has been introduced, the path has been opened by teachers, by parents, and so on. But some kids are not so lucky, and this had been thrown away. So what I can say is that outreach programs, especially in rural areas, would be helpful. Those with parents who are aware, cultivate this mindset in-house, starting from house, is also helpful as well.
Okay, thank you, Rasina. One more question here from one of the participants. On the positive side, COVID-19 outbreak is seen as a catalyst to drive fundamental change, especially in business digitalization and innovation. Using automation, digital, and AI to do much of our work so that humans can focus on higher value tasks as the key trends that will set Malaysia apart and create a more sustainable growth in this digital transformation journey. In this connection, what would be the right steps to upscale and future-proof our millennials in order to make the Malaysian industry a truly competitive in the long run? This is more on, I believe, more on training, what we need to equip them with.
Right. So this is where I would like to chip in some my personal perspective. I think the current generation, they do not need much guidance like what we were before during our time. I mean, during our time, we even have to get some consultation just to understand what is our next move after college or after degree or diploma. But the current generation, informations are in their fingertips. So by having said that, what they can do basically is to leverage on all this information that's currently available in their fingertips to help them to make the next step of decisions. I think it is not something uncommon among the millennials to understand that the industry moving forward will be hungry with all these upcoming modernization of technology like gamification, automation, and so forth. And this is where the wisdom comes together with the knowledge that they have digest within themselves through the information that are available within them. The only thing that I would like to, if possible, just cautious whoever that's going to go with embarking the technologies. The technology plays a two-edged sword. If it is done well, it will bring us to the positiveness. If it is done without a proper planning, it will bring one good things in the expense of others. For example, automation. If we do not plan the automation well, in which process or which level of automation that we would like to adopt in our industry or in our businesses, that may cause the loss of a job or vacancy at the other side of the spectrum. So this is where the wisdom or the level of understanding of effectiveness of utilizing technology will need to play its role, and together with the millennials and those who are currently at the baby boomer stage or the Gen Z, can combine their knowledge and experience together in order to shape the movement of the technology moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roni, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ali Imran Nordin, Associate Professor Engineer Dr. Nur Hasdan Nordin, and Mr. Roni Ambrose Gobili for all your inputs, which was very good, and I believe that we all and participants have really learned a lot from the session. So ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to an end. On behalf of the Ministry of Communications and Multimedia Malaysia, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to all the panelists for your expertise and valuable sharing. I would also like to thank all the participants for joining us today for your active participation. On behalf of my ministry here, I would like to also thank my team, consisting of Dr. Suziana Nazla Ismail, Puan Nurul Izzati Zainal Abidin, and Mr. Rajesh Babu Kitnan, without whom this workshop would not be this successful. So with this, I now conclude today's webinar. Thank you very much.
So this is
Thank you. Have a good day.
This is a close-up view.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thanks.